one of the main reasons we wrote this book for is because I hate people having this wrong picture of what nonviolent struggle is. When you say nonviolent struggle, people say protests, marches, million of people, occupy this, occupy that. We call this tactics of concentration. You concentrate either your people or your time or your resources in one spot. Looks great on a TV, which is probably the reason everybody thinks that this is what the nonviolent struggle is all about. But you've lived in Chile, so you know what would happen to Chileans when they go to demonstrate against Pinochet. They would shot dead. That's clear thing, arrest, something really nasty. So when you're prevented from going to the square, what would you do? Would you insist of going and getting in conflict with the police, or you would disperse? So we call this small acts of resistance or low-risk tactics of dispersion. So Chileans would go home and hit pots and pans from windows. We were doing this as well. And they would turn the lights on and off. The beauty of it is A, anybody can do it. B, they will arrest you for what? For banging pot and pan from your own home. It's unlikely. Successful nonviolent movements know how to engage young people, rural people, clever people, stupid people, old people. Like the pensioners could do it. Like my grandma was hitting pot and pan. And it is great because if you want to win by numbers, you need to offer a little bit for somebody. My grandma couldn't demonstrate in a harsh winter, 1997, but she could, do this kind of stuff. And, Chileans were even more clever. They were developing this fantastic moment of driving half speed and walking half speed. It started with taxi drivers and then, continued with the people. And immediately everybody was doing something which is A, subversive, and B, completely legal. Because even in North Korea, there is no traffic sign which says you must drive faster than 7 miles an hour. Oh, you must drive slower than 30 miles and that's it. But what if you drive 2 miles and I drive 2 miles and she drives 2 miles? So, we collapse the whole city. And everybody's honking and immediately there's a fantastic sentence I've seen in one of the movies about the Chile. There is the guy who says, okay, the main thing was that this blurb of fear just disappeared at the moment because we understand that we are the many and they are the few.
Yep.
And that's like, the power in numbers. It also builds this kind of stuff. And these small acts of resistance is what we should focus on and what we should explain. Unfortunately, they're not so media sexy, so they don't get so much attention as a big thing. But then one of the reasons why I think this book matters now is because we are witnessing the Occupyism. It's the trend in the world which has nothing to do with the fair goals of Occupy movement. It has to do with copying the Tahrir strategy. Mm-hmm. So Tahrir was bring people in one place, Occupy was bring people on one place, Hong Kong now, bring people on one place. Problem with high-risk tactics of concentration is A, it's demanding. People need food, people need to sleep, people need toilets, and how the square will look after 7 days. How will you keep people busy and happy after 7 days? And it's highly ineffective in the terms that your opponent, like mainland China, only need to sit and wait for numbers to dwindle. Mm-hmm. And you're wasting the large resources. Part of the things we do in our workshops and in our classes is we do cost-benefit analysis. Like 10,000 people sitting on a square for 3 hours listening to this stupid speaker. This is 30,000 working hours. What else? How many doors can we knock? How many pots and pans we can ban? And it's like these low-risk tactics of dispersion, they were everywhere, but people just don't look at it.
Talk about the Occupy movement in the United States. What went wrong, and do you see any hope for effective nonviolent protest movements here?
I think the need is there, and I think especially the topic of social injustice is very hot in the United States, in the most of the Western world. I met these people. I tell this short story in a book. I was amazed how clever they are and how committed they are and how we share this cause that we are all 99. But first of all, I think they failed to formulate their goals very clear, and I think that's the problem, because why would I join you if you can't explain me what you're standing for? And this is the problem that Saul Alinsky looks at his book, Rules for Radicals. He says, anger is a powerful mobilizer, but anger without hope, like what you're offering me, should be the very important part. What is the vision of the future? Second, I think they were tied to the tactics, which is really problematic, and very expensive tactics, difficult to maintain. And they were branding themselves after the tactics. instead of, let's imagine that they are branded 99%. That would be a kind of worldwide social movement immediately. So there were several mistakes, but movements learn from their mistakes. So hopefully we are going to see more prospective equality rights movement in the United States, and the one who can really harm the greedy banks and evil companies rather than just protesting in front of them. It's like what really hurts these people is, when you cost them money. This is the language they understand.
So what would you do if you were designing an effective protest movement?
First of all, there must be a vision. If you would be a king for a day, what would be different? How the banking system will look? What is the social equality? What is the social program? Then, second, how you're going to achieve it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are the 5 goals you stand for?
So you make that clear to people.
To make it that clear. And one of the things we often do with our workshops is we try to push people through the process where they're really capable to write down the useful plan. And we often say, nobody will join you if you can explain him or her who is going to do what, when, how, and why. And this is not corporate thinking. This is being highly organized. And I think with the higher organization, the different branding, but also with this more inclusive politics, because this is not only the movement of the liberal pursed people sitting in the park. This is the movement of the people who stand for the social justice in this country. So, if you want to win in climate change and if you want to win in Occupy and bringing social justice, unfortunately, your target audience is far wider than clever, bright, white, university-educated people. You need to go and touch.
So what do you do? What you don't do a march in a park. What do you do?
Well, it's like I was talking about, do you get a business reply mail? Yes, everybody gets business reply mail. So what if we send a brick back to the bank? Like every business reply mail will cost bank $70. So now we are talking about the real cost, because this is the language the banks talk. If you can cost them money, then you can, bring them to the negotiating table and maybe talk about the forced evictions, which you want to fix. This is what Indignados did in Spain. They were focusing on banks, they were preventing people from forced evictions, and I think this is why they were successful in turning into the major party. One of the things that American donor society, I think, should learn from Serbia is what works and what doesn't work. And I think this is a grand lesson learned. Like, look at the sanctions. Targeted sanctions work. Shotgun sanctions don't work. So when you look at the petrol embargo, it's strengthening Milosevic. When you look freezing accounts of 10 of his associates, it really helped. So it's like, when you look at the donor money, I would particularly say that there were several levels of where it was well spent. First of all, local radio and TV stations. Empowering the alternative media network in Serbia was so important. 96, 97, we won the war on the local elections. So we got mayors of 30 different countries, different municipalities, including the city of Belgrade. That meant having 23 radio and 7 TV stations in the network. Equipping this network was the best spent international money in the history of international support that I'm aware of. So I'm not an expert in this. And then funding the civil rights organizations, particularly training election monitors. One of the things you can do without being, it's like when you're giving money to the opposition, of course, opposition would be labeled to be foreign puppets, mercenaries, whatever. We've been there, we've done that. But one of the things which is really important is you want to develop a capacity for independent election count. Because in many of these countries, you have the situations where government doesn't allow monitors or opposition is not capable of producing them. We needed 30,000 trained monitors on the day of election. This is army.
That was crucial in Chile also.
This is really a lot of work. And I think IFES and NDI, I don't know who funded it, but it was well invested money. And you can always tell, it will be labeled as a foreign mercenaries, but you're basically funding free and fair elections. So this type of money given to the concrete projects from abroad is something really, really useful, as opposed to having professional NGOs like you have in Belarus now, where funding different NGO really makes a situation, makes international community the part of the problem, rather than the part of the solution. Because this is how we get the NGO professionals, and this is how we get the best excuses of Lukashenkos of this world to say, they're receiving money, they're NGO professionals. So it's like, I don't know if this helps, this type of advice, but international community should help, and I think it's our obligation to help, but these type of stuff should be carefully taught.
How
before.
important was international funding to Otpor?
The last year it was important. It's like at the very end, it was very important, this last campaign, and he's finished. And it was basically done through printing and, you know, creating the materials and the t-shirts and stuff like that. I think the one of the things the mistakes the movement make, and that was also our mistake at the very beginning, was you don't understand that the more you rely on your resources, the less vulnerable you are. So it's like, before we got to the position where we were really receiving tremendous amount of some kind of aid, we were capable to survive, like we had 23 offices who were donated by the members. So you don't really look where you can fundraise inside the country. There's also the highly underappreciated possibility to fundraise from internal business, because the businessmen are always sitting on 2 chairs. On the day they will have their photo opportunities with the government. In the night they're going to give you, like we were getting cell phones from the top Serbian businessman for free. Because he wanted to make sure that in case we win, you never know. And when you look at the Hong Kong protests, they were reportedly supported by one of the two Hong Kong business people. So it's really interesting where there's so many opportunities for funding. Unfortunately, the organizations and movements, they sit down and write grants. And this is how they become dependent. That's a big problem.